everyone, Planet ISM. Welcome to part 2 of the Tamiya Toyota Supra step-by-step video build. Before we get started today, make sure you're sub to the channel. Click the bell notification symbol, give us a thumbs up and leave any comments down below. I do read and reply to them all. Might take a bit of time, but I do. And as always, everything you see in these videos and everything I use, from the camera equipment, brushes, paints, airbrushes, everything, is all linked in the description down below. Click on the link, it takes you a big long list of all the products and you can find them there. So, part 2. Today we're going to work on all the chassis, running gear and the interior, and by the end of the video hopefully we'll have all that painted up, a little bit of a wash, all sorted, ready to lead us to part 3, in which we'll hopefully get it finished. We'll get all the semi-gloss black work done, the lights, the glass, polish up that body and get it all assembled up and ready for completion, which would be great. So straight away, let's jump straight into the build and get going. Right, okay, so straight in with what we're working on today. We're going to cut off all the interior parts, clean them all up, get them all mounted for primer, and obviously get them primed, base coloured, and then add a bit of a wash to them to give them a bit of life afterwards as well. So we've got our Tamiya sprue cutters, we've got our instructions in front of us for reference, and we're just making note we get all the parts off we need for our chassis. So once they're off, we give them all a closer clean up with the snips to get rid of all the sprue locating points. Make sure we get all these cut as flush as possible with the cutters, and then we'll come back with some ultimate sanders, get them all sanded off smooth, and that will leave us a nice smooth finish for our primer. We've got a 400 thinny stick. We're going to use this and a combination of sponges and buffers and clean up all the parts, get rid of all those locator points where the sprue's been connected to them, get them all buffed up and back to plastic. We're then going to mount them and we're going to give them a coat of primer in ultimate black primer. So the primer's been allowed to dry overnight. We've got some Tamiya LP5, thinned about 60% with a little thinner with retarder. We've got our Ultimate Apex airbrush, we're at about 18 psi, and we're going to put 2 or 3 coats on the chassis and all the other parts that need spraying in semi-gloss black, and then we'll switch colour and spray them all accordingly. So nice light coats, build it up slowly, you can start getting them a little bit wetter in a bit. Very forgiving paint to use, really nice, definitely one of my favourite paints at the minute. Covers really well, you can put it down really wet if you wish, but I find it's best to build it up slowly and get a wetter coat on near the end. So 2 or 3 passes, give it a light go over, put it to one side for 5 minutes, then you can come back and put your other coats down. As you can see, it's going on, it's wettish, but it's not really wet. But the coverage is phenomenal, and in conjunction with the retarder thinner, it leaves a really nice smooth finish behind. So lots of angles to take care of, and little recesses, the wheel arches, and you got the interior part as well, so don't forget to flip it around. You get the front splitter, inner arches and the side skirts to make sure they're all evenly covered. As I say, we've got several components to do on the running gear, so make sure they're all picked out. Have your instructions to hand, as you can see mine are there, so you can see all the appropriate colour callouts. And give everything a couple of coats at least, leave it to dry between coats, and come back when you're ready. So we've got some AK steel, we've got our brake calipers and discs, they're all incorporated in one as usual with Tamiya. So we're going to put the base colour down steel, let this dry, and then we'll brush paint the caliper red on later on. So again, I believe this is an enamel-based product, but there's a bit of controversy, is that the right word? Controversy about whether these are actually lacquer or not. I think they are enamels, they spray like enamels to me. They do dry a lot faster. A couple of coats of that, we're on to titanium silver from Tamiya, LP63, for our exhaust. And again, Proudly UMP black primer, a couple of light coats all over. Fantastic coverage, really does cover well. Build up the colour nice and slow, so get a nice light coat on, put it down for 5 minutes, come back, and then get a second coat on. Now with parts like this, there's lots of angles to get, so make sure you get them all. There's nothing worse than thinking you're finished, cleaning up or changing colour, and having to come back and respray because you've missed a bit. Once you've got a light coat down, put it down, pick another part up, and spray that, and then come back again. By the time you've done one part and go back to the other, it'll be ready for another coat, which is the beauty of lacquers. So again, nice light thin coats. We're not aiming to get all the paint down in one go. We're going to build it up slowly, get that nice depth of colour. So there we go, this is probably our third coat, so 3 light coats. As you can see, the colour's built up absolutely beautiful. It's a really nice metallic colour, the titanium silver. And on the silencer on the back, again, real nice colour, absolutely beautiful. So these parts are allowed to dry overnight, and we've got Tamiya LP21 Italian Red. We're going to give it a good shake up, and then we're going to brush paint our calipers. Now, as long as you load the brush up and do a light coat and let them dry, there's no problem at all brush painting with these lacquer paints. So we got plenty of paint on, just going to dab it in places. We don't want it to run, so keep it away from the edges to begin with. And we're just going to put a nice even coat all around. Again, not trying to get coverage with one coat. We're just trying to get a nice base layer down that once dry, we can come back a little bit heavier next time and get full, even coverage. As you can see, if you're nice and careful, there's no problem at all. If we do get a little bit of run that goes down to the next part, we're going to pop a wash on it later anyway. That will kind of hide it. Or if you can get it with a cocktail stick and try and scrape off any excess paint. But for me, if you get a little bit of a run that goes over onto the other side, just leave it be. Your wash will kind of hide it anyway. So front and rear calipers both done. They've had 1 coat each. As you can see, great coverage. Really does cover well. We'll give these another coat later on and then leave them to dry. So we've got Model Air Silver now. It's RLMO1. Very nice colour for brush paint in silver. I'm just going to pick out some parts on the running gear. So on this diff, we're going to pick up the cooler at the back, I think it is. And again, neat out the bottle in one of our plastic paint cups. Doesn't need thinning. Nice thin coats. Coverage is, again, fantastic with this. Does cover really well. And just take your time. Again, don't try and cover it in one go. Put a light coat on, let it dry. Come back. 1 or 2 coats is usually plenty. Probably 2 is best, to be honest. Let it dry and just build it up slowly. There's plenty of parts to paint, so by the time you get from one to another, you'll usually find it's dry, and it's just a continuous rotation of painting parts. Really not a big fan of the Model Air at all, but as a brush paint, I picked this up from Tom on the Scale Modelling channel. Tried it and thought, you know what, that is actually really good. As a silver brush paint, it's probably one of the better ones out there, but I'm not a fan of airbrushing this stuff at all, which is why this is literally the only bottle of Model Air I own. So, last few bits to pick out. As you can see, just some careful brushwork, which is quite nice to do for a change. I try and airbrush as much as possible, but some parts just are too difficult to mask off. A good example is this central channel on the chassis. So rather than trying to mask it all and airbrush it, a bit of careful painting will do just as good a job. So we're going to paint that entire tunnel there. I think it's where the exhaust sits. All the way through. As you can see, fantastic coverage. We're going to a Tamiya flat brush now to give us a bit of a fighting chance to get a nice coverage. And again, we're not trying to cover it in one go. 2 coats will do on this. Maybe even 3. But some careful painting saves a lot of time of masking. And if you do get a little bit of excess paint, you can wipe it off of a moist cotton bud anyway. And nobody will ever know the difference. As you can see, the coverage of the paint is fantastic. It really is good. I've not tried any other metal colours. Keep meaning to pick some up and keep forgetting. Probably get some gold and different tones just to try out for picking out detail. As you can see, we've got a few parts where we've gone over with the brush. So we've got a moistened cotton bud. Only moistened with water. And we're just running it over the top. And it will take off probably 80% of it. If you need any more, put a little bit of... I would use Vallejo airbrush cleaner if I was going to do this, because it's not harsh enough to damage the paint, but it should be just enough to get the excess acrylic off over the lacquer. So we've got some Rocket Max from Deluxe. We've got it on our paint cup as well, and we're going to start assembling all our running gear. So there's lots of components to do. You've got some pretty tricky parts to attach as well. So make sure you pay attention to your instructions, make sure everything's orientated right, and you got the correct parts. And probably one of my biggest tips is dry fit everything to make sure it all fits. And as you see, we've got our white tack in there we use to hold the cocktail sticks on. Make sure that's out of there as well. And we're going to apply a little bit of CA glue where needed and stick all the parts together. So again, careful application, don't be getting stuck to the parts, getting glue everywhere. It's very easy to do. And like I say, if you're unsure, dry fit, test fit everything. Once you're happy that, yeah, that goes there, we can commit to glue. Now, we've got a few parts here that are all black. We're going to add a grey wash to this later on to break it up a little bit. I don't want to do it now. I've had problems in the past putting the wash on and then handling it, leaving fingerprints. So I like to get it all assembled first, then pop the wash on, and that'll break up the monotony of some of that black a little bit later on. As you can see, quite sparingly with the super glue, CA glue. Just a few dabs here and there. There's no real strength required on this part. It's just literally holding it in place. And of course, make sure we're getting it lined up correctly. And there we go, glued in place quite happily. We're going to speed forward this, a little bit of music, and get all this assembled. So there we go, that's everything assembled. We'll give it a Tamiya black panel line wash, which has been allowed to dry for a couple of hours. We've got some odourless mineral spirits from Winsor Newton, Sans Odor, and a little bit on a cotton bud. I'm just going to lightly rub over all the areas, remove all that excess wash, and that should leave behind a nice weathered look to it. It's all pretty new. I don't like my vehicles looking old, either inside, out, or underneath. So just leave a little bit of a wash to add a bit of depth and detail to the parts, and takes away a little bit of the monotony of all the similar colours. So I find with the Sans Odor, the odourless mineral spirits, just to rub over lightly to begin with, moisten it all, then spin the cotton bud round to the dry side and mop up all the final excess wash with that. As you can see, onto the disc at the side, just some gentle cleanup. We're just trying to leave a little bit of depth and a little bit of added detail to the part. So we're not trying to remove all the wash, we're just trying to leave it in all the prominent areas. So onto our interior now. Same as before, we're going to cut off all the parts required, get them all cleaned up, get them all mounted, ready for primer, and then sprayed on our various colours. Now we're going to add a little bit of colour to the inside of the car. It calls out for red, so we're going to add some red. So it'll be a mixture of grey, black and red, and hopefully this will give a little bit of an interesting look inside. So same procedure as the running gear, cut the parts off, cut the locating sprue points off, and then clean up with our various sanders until we get nice and clean. It's the same thing all the time really, but if I didn't show it, people would ask how I do it. So 400 thinny stick is one of my favourite sanders, along with the 240 grey sponges and the buffers. Of course you can work your way through the range should you wish, but for me this is 9 times out of 10 what I use. So on the steering wheel we've got a couple of sprue points we need to clean up, so we'll get the remnants, most of it off with the thinny stick, and then using the softer sponge, which won't take away the curved edge, we can get it fully cleaned up, hit it with the buffer, and away we go. We're going to do this to all the interior parts, get them all cleaned up, polished up, mounted on cocktail sticks, and on our stand, as we can see here in our booth, ready for primer. Now, because some of these are red, we're going to use some of the Tamiya Pink Fine Surface Primer, decanted and thinned 10% with our Tamiya Thinner with Retarder. We're going to airbrush it on. This is a fantastic primer and a fantastic colour as a base for red. It will really make the red colour pop, and it's what I tend to use under all my red paint finishes. And as you'll see in a little bit, it makes the red a lot easier to spray and very, very vibrant. So we're just allowing a light coat to begin with. Again, this is lacquer primer. So just build up slowly, make sure we get all those angles, corners, recesses, and then we'll put it down, pick all the other parts up. By the time we come back to it, the same as before, it'll be dry. And if coat number 2, which is what we're applying now on the same part, put it down again, and then we'll come back after another coat, and we'll start applying our LP, I think it's 21 again, for our interior colour. So again, we're going to build this up, probably 3 coats in total. Get a nice deep red colour. So there we go, that's our second coat. We are spraying all the other parts at the same time. I'm just picking this one part to show the process as we go. Second coat, and our third and final coat, just a quick go over. As you can see, we've got a nice deep red finish there. Then got other parts that we primed in grey Ultimate Primer, and we're going to spray these in a darker grey colour. If I remember right off the top of my head, this is Tamiya LP60. I didn't pick the colour for any specific reason, it was just a nice dark grey. I thought it would contrast well against the black and the red of the rest of the interior. So again, a couple of light coats, get a nice base coat down. On bigger parts like this, we can afford to put the paint on a little bit wetter. But again, same process, put it to one side, spray the other parts, come back and build the coats up as we go. Again, as you can see, bigger parts like this, you can push the paint a little bit more and start putting down a little bit wetter. It is very forgiving the lacquer paint. After a couple of coats we get nice coverage, and it really does start to look apart. As you can see, we've got a nice wet coat in there. Again, through the apex, this is the .35 needle again, and we're at 18 psi, which seems to be my magic number with the lacquers. I don't tend to drop any lower than that, and I get really nice finishes. So, as you can see on this tub. We've got to mask off the centre transmission tunnel to be sprayed black. We're going to use a section of the AZU tapes. Off the top of my head, we use the 1mm, the 0.7 and the 2. And then we're going to use the Tamiya tape to infill the rest later on. So it's going to take some careful precision masking, and it's going to take quite a while to do. Probably going to use half an hour masking for a couple of minutes painting and 30 seconds of unmasking. But the devil is in the detail. Time doing this is well worth spent because it will add a lot of detail to the finished model. And yeah, it is worth doing. But obviously that's up to you if you want to take this time. You could just leave it grey. Nobody will really notice. But for me, we're going to mask it off. As you can see, luckily on the, cockpit tub, the interior tub, there is a line to follow along, which is very handy. The Tamiya popped in. So you can just follow that along with your tape. Some careful application. Try not to scratch your paint underneath if you're using tweezers like me. It's very easily done. And we get a nice length along the edge. Burnish it down the corners of a cocktail stick. Then we'll burnish it down with a cotton bud to make sure we've got all those edges nicely burnished down. Again, Tamiya tape, AZU tape, by far the best masking tapes you can get in my opinion. Now, we've got my DeSpaced circle cutter. This is the first time I've used this properly. I bought this at Telford in November, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut a circle. Let's have a look. I think it's third time lucky I got this size, and it was about right. So we're going to cut the circle. We're going to cut this roughly in half-ish. It's not in half right now, it will be in a second. As so, and that leaves us a semicircle, which we can then use to mask over the top of the transmission tunnel. Otherwise, it's quite a tricky part to mask. So as you can see, these tools do have a use, not always for what they're intended. But this is a very good way of doing it. And as the circle cutters go, the DeSpaced one is a phenomenal piece of kit. Super accurate, super well made. Unfortunately, Tim seems to think they're not very good for roundels. That's a whole different matter we'll talk about at a later date. Bit more of an in private joke, that one, to be honest. But for things like this, it gives an absolutely flawless edge. And if we just stretch the tape a little bit, we can manipulate it where we want it, each side. And yeah, it does a very quick job of what would be quite tricky to do with normal masking tape. Not a cheap tool, they're about the £50–60 mark, but it's one of those tools that when you've got it, you should have it forever, and you'll use it more than you think, and I get you tight little jams like this. So once we've got it on, again, burnish all the edges down with the cocktail stick, and then we'll get, cotton bud, sorry, and then we'll get some other masking tape and infill the sides. So there you go, as you can see, we've got a bit of the 2mm AZU tape, and continue on down past the semicircular piece we put on, and there we go, job done. After about, 30 minutes, all masked up, we're ready for a bit of semi-gloss black along a transmission tunnel. And while we're at it, we're going to mask up and paint the centre of the seats as well. So seats have all been painted in LP5, semi-gloss black. We're going to mask up and paint the centres in LP... Oh, this has got me now. I've forgotten the number. It might be 60, actually. I might have got the number wrong before. I think it is. LP60 is Tamiya NATO Black. So we're going to spray all the centres in that to give it a bit of tonal variation. And then we're going to come back with some flat clear from Tamiya and the normal lacquer thinner, because as you can see, these parts we painted earlier are very, very shiny. To me, leather in real life isn't that shiny. So we're just going to dull it down a little bit. We're about a 50-50 mix. We're not using the leveling, the retarder thinner, because we don't want any sheen at all. So we're using the normal Tamiya thinner with this. And a couple of coats on each seat and each part that was sprayed red, and that will dull down the finish enough to make it look a little bit less toy-like, hopefully, and make it look a little bit more realistic. It's a nice clear, the flat clear, it goes down really well, and if you didn't thin it as much, you'd probably get a bit of a flatter finish. But as you can see, unmasked, our transmission tunnel looks great, including the piece at the back. Very happy with that. So that's a good job done. And then our seat, once we unmask this as well, it's not a blatantly obvious difference in colour, but if you look closer you'll see it. You can see it's just a bit grey in the centre. So I guess that could give you an Alcantara look kind of thing, and it just adds a bit more detail and breaks up the monotony of the cockpit a little bit. Now, we've got several speaker decals to pop on the car. There's 2 for the rear parcel shelf, 1 for the red door insert at the top, and then what I guess is a tweeter just above the door handle and the actual door card itself. So your normal decal application, get them in place, remove all the excess fluid underneath, hit with your decal solutions of choice, which mine are the Ultimate Solutions. Allow them to dry, make sure you're where you want them and that they conform properly, and then we can start assembling, getting our speaker grills on, getting the door cards glued together, so on and so forth. So with this one, I went straight to the strong decal solution. These being Tamiya decals, they seem to respond a little bit better to some of the stronger solutions in my opinion. Once we're happy with that, we hit it with the extra strong for a final push down, and once they set, they looked absolutely fantastic. There we go. If you've not got our solutions, we do a normal, strong, and extra strong. We also do a nice holder for them as well to stop you spilling them. You can see it just up at the top. And in my opinion, these are some, if not the best, decal solutions on the market. They will tame 90% of decals without any issues at all. Follow instructions carefully. There is a video on the channel explaining how to use them, and they will serve you very well. So, detail on the brake pedal. We've got a little decal to go on there as well, and on the accelerator. And again, we hit it with the decal solution, let it set, and then we've got our instrument panel on our dashboard as well to pop in. As you can see, you're going to pop that in place. There's 2 parts to it. Remove all the excess liquid and just hit it with solutions and leave it be. Now, it did call out to paint the center run of the dashboard in silver, but I didn't think I'd like the look, so I thought we'd go a different route, which I'll show in a minute, by just giving it a wash with a Tamiya panel liner in grey. So yeah, obviously it's your choice what you do, but I just thought it looked a bit weird painted in silver, so I chose not to do it. And as we say, it's our model, you can do with it as you wish. Final part, we've got a little I assume it's a display panel. So there's one of the chrome kind of decal stickers to go in the center first, and then an actual decal to go on top. Now, I can't see the point in this decal at all over the chrome part. I assume it's to get that chrome rim, but I'm pretty sure Tamiya could have done that with a decal all by itself. But hey, it's there and it's done. So they're all to the side drying. We're now going to assemble our seats. So we've got a couple of chrome inserts for the top. So cut it off. Quick test fit, make sure it all fits in place, which it does. And then some very careful CA glue application where it won't be seen. And make sure you don't put it anywhere where it's going to squeeze out and ruin all your hard work. If you're ever in doubt about using CA glue, pick a less, I'm going to say destructive glue, and use a PVA based glue, which is a lot more forgiving and you can remove a lot easier should you get any excess everywhere. On parts like this, as long as you're careful, you get it in there, no problem at all. So as you can see, with the contrast in 2 different blacks on the bottom part of the seat and the red and the chrome, they do look really good, the seats. Door cards now, we've got another red leather insert to go on here, and again, some careful application of the CA glue. We're using the same one as before, the Deluxe Rocket Max. Couple of dabs where it's needed. Make sure you don't get it on your fingers, make sure you get it all in the right place. Just pop it on, push it home, and leave it all to dry. So we've got our Tamiya grey panel liner now. We're going to add a wash to all these recessed details. We're not going mad, we're not putting tons of it in there. We just want to highlight some of this detail that we've got, because there's quite a lot of nice recessed detail. We might as well make the most of it. And again, on the center console, again, the door handles were called out to be painted in silver. I would rather leave them black and add the wash and just add a bit of detail that way. The same way we've done to the dash here as well. The wash brings out all the buttons and the vents and the controls. And once it's left to dry for half an hour or so, it wipes off pretty easy and leaves behind a nice finish. Again, on the seats, we're adding more detail to all the recesses on the seat, and also break up the line between we painted the same colours, or different colours should I say. After it's dry for half an hour, a little bit of Winsor Newton again on a cotton bud, and just lightly run over, removing all the excess wash. Remember, we don't remove all the wash, We just want to remove the wash from the highlighted areas and leave it all in the recessed areas. Just take your time with this. Might take a couple of goes around. And again, I like to moisten it first, then come back with the dry end to wipe it all off afterwards. On the rear partial shelf, we're going to use the black wash. Obviously, because we're on grey, the grey won't show as well. So add a little bit of the black wash to the back. Capillary action is not great on the centre part. It's a bit better on the edge because it's a wider run. As you can see, the touch and flow works. Now, our speaker grills, we're going to use a bit of glue and glaze from Deluxe Materials. Recipe for disaster with CA glue here, because if it gets out, it's going to look awful. So we just put some in, line up our locator point, pop it in, push it home, and there we go. Hey presto, one speaker grill. Same for the other side, and then we'll speed up and get the rest of the build done. So there we go, there's all our interior done. I'm really loving the look of the red on the grey and black interior. It really does look really good. It's come out really well. And there we go, it's glued on the chassis. And that's us for today, and we'll be ready to come back for part 3 very soon. Right, so there you go, that's where we're at today. As you can see, quite a lot of work. That probably was filmed over 4 or 5 days. Probably I had about 5 hours of footage there that I had to edit down to 33 minutes, which isn't easy. So we didn't procrastinate or dwell on anything. If the, you don't want to see me paint every single part. We said this before. I just showed anything that was important, and we skipped out all the unimportant stuff. So a lot of footage wasted, but it's all there and all the important stuff shown. And to me, that's the most important bit of it. It's a lovely kit. It's falling together. I'm really enjoying the build. I've been ill lately. I caught man flu just before Christmas, and it killed me all over Christmas. It's just starting to go now, so it was killing the mojo, because when you really just don't feel like doing things like this. But I pushed through, and I did a bit of work every day, and that's where we're at today. So really looking forward to part 3, which will probably be out, where are we today? It is Tuesday today. I'm hoping by the end of the week we'll have part 3 out and get this project all finished, done, dusted, and move on back to the bike build. What we've got left to do, we've got to do the wheels, we've got to do all the black work, so we've got a lot of trim to do on the outer part of the car. I'm toying with the idea of doing a couple of parts carbon, but I don't know if it's going to make it look a bit odd. I don't know. If not, it'll be semi-gloss black. We've got the glassware to do, all the lights, all the light clusters to do, all the interior glass, flat and polish up all the body, which shouldn't take too much to do. That's been curing over there for over a week now, which is really good. So I don't think we've got a massive amount of work to do, but it's finishing touches, all those little important bits and bobs, and yeah, we'll get it all done. So there we go. Thanks for watching today. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, pop them down below. Make sure you check out upretail.com. You get a lot of these products from, including the kit as well. Check out the Live the Bench page, Off Air Hangout group, ISM Facebook page and forum, my Pull ISM modelling page over on Facebook as well. And of course, make sure you sub to the channel, click that bell notification, give us a thumbs up, and leave a comment down below. I'll catch you all later. Take care. Bye bye.